Hey guys, it's Anisha Collins of Unashamed Imaging, and I'm here this week to talk about wedding videography and using different camera angles. Now, just to let you know, this video is not going to be very extensive. It's going to be basic to get you started, but to also understand how using different angles can help you during the filming portion of the ceremony. All right, so we're here to talk about wedding cinematography. So there is a difference between videography and cinematography, and I want to hone in on that really quick. So videography is basically just capturing what's going on. You're kind of documenting, putting it together, and then that's it. Cinematography is more so telling a story. So there's direction, or I should say there's more direction when you're doing cinematography because you have an agenda. There's certain footage that you know you need to communicate the story. So one big thing that I like to do for wedding ceremonies is I like to have 2 different camera angles. Now, I've seen people use 6. I don't see the need for that many, but to each his own. I'm not going to, pass hate or judgment on someone. If that's their creative process and it works for their target audience and their clients, and that's great. Personally, I just use 2 camera angles, and then usually one person is stationary and another person is the moving camera. So with that being said, you can have up to 3 angles really if you have 2 people, because for example, usually if I have a second shooter, they're stationary and then their job is to watch where I'm at. So that doesn't mean that because they're stationary, if I'm in their camera angle, that they're gonna be like, oh, I'm stationary, so I'm not gonna move. No, they will definitely have to adjust because that's what we're taught, and and that's how I train my shooters. But they are primarily stationary. Is probably the better way to say it. As the primary camera, meaning the lead shooter, I'm the one that's moving around a little bit more. So for example, if we have a ceremony where my second shooter's on the left-hand side and I'm on the right, then you have 2 camera angles, right? One's covering the bride and one's covering the groom. Now, if I was to shift to the middle, now there's technically a 3rd camera angle. Now, there may not be 3 cameras operating, but there's a 3rd angle because now there's that different angle. You have the 2 from the sides and then 1 down the middle. Now, I have set up cameras before in the back. For instance, I was on mine, I was on a monopod, my shooter was, on their camera, and then I had a wide angle in the back. That really is preference. There's been instances where I didn't use that footage because it just didn't fit the vibe, and then there's been instances where it had. So it's really personal preference, but the point of sharing why you should use 2 angles is because when you're telling a story, you don't want everything to just be from the bride's perspective or from the groom's perspective. You want it to be from both perspectives. So think, for example, and I'm gonna pretend to play 2 people, but if I'm standing this way, which is usually the direction of the groom, and the entire video is just his perspective, the first thought that's going to come to mind, I'm not even looking at you guys right now, that's a perfect example, but the first thought that's going to come to mind is, well what's the bride doing? What's her reaction, right? And if I switch over and now I become the bride, after a while you would say, well, what's going on with the groom? So that's why having 2 angles is really good, because it allows you to tell the story from both perspectives. Another piece of equipment that you can use, that I like to use during the ceremony, especially and during the couple portraits, and I've used it in other places, but those are like 2 real big places that I use, is the Osmo. The Osmo, especially for a female, is very lightweight. I'm able to get those nice pan shots. I would suggest finding a tutorial. That if you're unsure how to use the Osmo, I would suggest finding a tutorial on how to use it. But outside of that, I would just say, definitely 2 camera angles at minimum. If you're shooting solo, it's even harder, but still 2 camera angles at minimum. And then, obtaining a piece of equipment like an Osmo or a Crane or in some cases a Ronin. Some people have their opinions about the Ronin. I have mine as well. I'm for it and I'm not for it, because I've seen people use a Ronin and I've seen it spin out on them, and you don't want to be in the middle of a ceremony or in the middle of recording an important part and all of a sudden your Ronin just spins out on you. So that's my opinion. Someone may dislike that or disagree. That's great, that's y'all thing, but personally that's why I like the Osmo, especially for me, it being a female and I have a little bit more control. So I hope this video helped. If you guys have any questions or any comments, please leave them below. If you, like I said, if you want to submit questions or want to see me cover a topic, you can submit it to Ask Anisha, or you can submit it as a comment below and I'll take a look at it. See you next time. Bye.